piling up into cities. The T is a signal that you will soon be asleep, dreaming of multiple forms in the reproductive cycle of information piling up into cities. Certain themes recur in the flicker box: desire, combat, insolence, the right way to do something. Yellow, red, blue. Hang on to your hat when coming down the mountain. It is not necessary to salute. Simply lean into the wind. Put the finish on your XYZ. The autobiography gets writ. Let's take all this apart and put it back together differently, as if a line break were a pause and a comma, a way to play for time. The autobiography gets writ, if and or as lived. When together or on, what works there? Who hears repetitions cross time? Vibraphonic undulations hit on eardrums in an imagination of acoustical space, science friction, ward of the worlds. Different situations, back to back. An alarm clock for harmony, turnstile effect, going on in another room. Going off like that, it's a pleasure to know that. Smash product at low bridge with all due respect. The point is not to stop, and you don't stop. You shoe shop. Back before hip-hop, way beside bebop. Let's just say what does arrive is multiple, extraneous, contained in too much packing material, yet easily disposed of, only a few blocks away. We don't have any water. Next, I'm going to read from a book that Chris published in the late 90s, I think, 99. It's Cloud 8, and this is my collected collaborations with the poet Alan Bernheimer. We started collaborating in 1971 and have used a variety of forms through the period of toward the end of the century. We've known each other a long time, and we got so that we were pretty comfortable with writing together. And I'm going to read the last, my part of the last sequence in this book, which is called Ping Pong. It was written between 94 and 98, I guess. And it's a prose sequence written in correspondence via the internet. So it was actually, there was email before this, but it was around that time that everybody started using email, in the early 90s. And as I learned when I hadn't looked at this for a while, and I looked it over this afternoon, and it reminded me that initially we had a pretty good head of steam and we were corresponding pretty frequently, and then it started to kind of, the frequency diminished and it kind of lagged, and over the last couple of years there were only a few of them. It slowed down, in other words. I'm just going to read, it's in paragraph form, we just alternated paragraphs sending back and forth, and I'm just going to read my part of it. So there's a little bit of dialogue. It's actually quite a bit of dialogue. And I'll be referring to things that he said, which you won't hear. But it doesn't really matter, as I'm sure you'll understand when you hear it. Thanks, Chris. It's in 3 sections, which are titled and numbered. 1, Diesel Notes. What I saw yesterday was a gaping barn, and you were yelling across some slough to Little Venice Island. Discussion. Maybe we should crank up the Magic Theater. I thought I spotted it once or twice from the air, climbing up out of Oakland or SFO, but recently I've had trouble pinpointing it on a map. Do you have a copy of The Concept of the Good, which was our first collaboration back in '71? What did you take Joey to mean by lots of discussion before, during, and after? I'm a little conflicted over Joey. My idea was somehow to Shanghai Joey. Any ideas? I read in the Cron today that Joey wants the audience to respond with questions or comments, breaking down the reader-listener polarity or something like that. Of course, I don't have a problem with reader-listener polarity. You wouldn't invite concert-goers to bring their instruments, would you? I thought to comply, I'd have to ditch them for some reason anyway. I can imagine Bill saying that. But I didn't get very far with any of this. In fact, I was beginning to think I'd just show up with some work to read and play it by ear. I like your idea of images from memory, like Herman and Helen's, but I'm not sure how to give it that soup song of artifice that would separate it from info trash. Cue off the news? Red, yellow, blue? Of course my instinct is like yours in D.C. last summer. I also agree totally about the following, which arrived by mistake right after your reply. To all. The EFQ locations have been changed from repack shelf locations to oversized repack locations. The EFQ locations are still in the same area of the facility. The locations have been labeled with the new location setup. If you have any questions, please contact me. Thanks, Tim Nicely. Do you have your bags stacked? Lunch with M was Caesar's, the proprietor, the son of old friends of my mother-in-law's cousin B. Introduced M to S, all smiles. Neural networks dropped into the chasm between innovation and the early majority. But recently, some have been seen climbing up on the other side, intelligent feelers intact. After the bridge, the caravan takes off again in its time-suspended journey. The oscillating overdrive report goes into white noise that holds the harmony just as well, like the sound heard in cartoons when the Roadrunner takes off. Now that they have rights to all the windows, it's no wonder we can't get them open. Next, they'll be suing the Windy City for patent infringement. Ridiculitis. It says here they're having words in the corridor here. I better duck. Ab has no hands. His wrists are stumps with little pegs in the center. Then he has hands again. That from a dream in the 80s. And the worst part is I can't read. Is that true? Yeah, except for the part about not being able to read. That from a dream in the 80s entitled Wayne, which was Ab's first name. These rhymes weave thick as a rhizome, like kikuyu grass, the underpinning of Oakland. It's not easy to fall through their net, even from 12 stories up. It arrived from Kenya for the 1906 World's Fair on Yerba Buena Island, an ingenious new ground cover, and quickly spread. Now it's everywhere, even on our TV at night. That from before a 3-hour meeting on Etruscan character recognition. Now it's indigenous and has been edged by a Mr. Lee. Is that true? Yes, but it is abjectly true. You had to be there, and in fact, you were there, but in name only. It was a meeting of the names. Local angles settled into the society of the spectacle. Pull tab, pop cork, squeeze can, and stomp. That's how my generation puts out the trash. Basura. Andre Abley? You forgot the I. I forgot all 50 of them, except the one, the time Bob Kaufman spoke. He spoke in Yeats. Yeah. Or was it T.S.? All I ought to know, I now need to know. Spoken like a pronoun. M started to tell me something about P when my attention clicked and was dragged away by someone or something else. What was it? Food. You were in the East. People tried to put us down. I can hear the critics now. If this hermetic dialogue is any indication, the superhighway will not foster greater accessibility for more readers, but will spawn the opposite. Increasingly specialized techno-babble, pulling vested interests down over the spare parts. But these are only elements of scale. We are training ourselves to recognize the universe in a grain sandwich. Cascading granularity lighting up the memory banks. No spit, no polish, tube. One man, one cooler, under God. Writing nude in the nude is not my idea of quotation. Silver smelt, kick up faux surf down the beach. Loud Americans, delicate yellow bird. I see what you mean about the lodge gap. These words have specific rocks attached to them that pull them down to the bottom of this page. Fields of the deep, for instance. I see what you mean about the large gap. The Sea of Cortez lodged in my memory like a table in a doorway, of which I am the chair, standing next to. Well, I stand up next to a mountain, jot it down with the side of my hand. Drive by day, sticky at night. And that was what I did this summer, fall.